Hello, my name's Keith Brent. I'm a consultant paediatrician and I'm the chair of the BMA's Consultants Committee. You may or may not be aware, but big things are happening at the moment, and these will affect every consultant and every junior to be a consultant. The government wants a contract variation. It's important to note that this would not be the same as in 2003, when people had the option of remaining on their current or the old contract. What the government want is a contract variation. Your contract would change. So, why are we here? Well, the honest answer is that we, the BMA, didn't really ask for these negotiations. They were demanded by the government and employers. And they were demanded with the threat of imposition of a contract if we didn't enter negotiations. You may remember that in the summer, Jeremy Hunt called the BMA out of touch with its members and a roadblock to reforms that will save lives. So that leads me on to their stated aims. Their stated aim is to facilitate all types of 7-day working, not just urgent and emergency, but elective as well, and doing that by changing the contract. You'll see on the slide various changes that they want to bring about to the contract. It's important to remember that they want to make this change to 7-day working without any new recurrent money for either consultants or juniors. We support 7-day working. Indeed, you might say, but we already work 7 days. Yes, for emergencies, indeed we do, but we're perfectly prepared to talk with the government and employers about improvements that can be made to improve the care of patients. But we do think that is likely to cost money. It's important for you to realise that an absolute cardinal thing for the government is that they want to remove Schedule 3, Paragraph 6. I know it sounds very tedious referring to a particular clause in a contract, but that one really is important. You may recall that during the summer Jeremy Hunt has repeatedly talked of consultants having an opt-out. Well, of course we don't have an opt-out. It's that clause that he refers to, and that's the clause that allows us to decline non-emergency work during antisocial hours. Of course, no consultant can decline emergency care of patients, and I can't imagine that any ever would. But that's how it's been portrayed, as being an opt-out. All of this is done on a background that I'm sure you're all aware of, and I don't really need to tell you about, that our real income has dropped markedly over the last few years. So what changes are suggested? Well, the first and biggest change would be to the basic pay arrangements. At the moment, our current scale has multiple increments, with increases every few years, up to a top salary reached after about 20 years. The new pay scale would just have 2 points. There would be a lower starting salary. At the moment, the talk is of about £71,000, and a lower top pay point, about £95,000. But that £95,000 would be reached for most consultants in about 5 years, instead of the 14 that it currently takes to get that sort of level, and that might well be better suited to a career average pension scheme as the scheme now is. We would, of course, want to try and negotiate some pay protection for existing consultants, but that sort of detail has yet to be decided. What does the government plan about antisocial hours? What's being discussed there? Well, clearly this is portrayed as being the basis of the change to contracts, that out-of-hours work needs to increase to meet a 7-day service, and I've already said that there won't be any recurrent money to facilitate that. We're exploring various models of how work in less social hours could be paid. The government have said that one of their intentions is that people who are currently working more onerous out-of-hours rotas would receive more pay. But it's very likely that any extra money moved to those consultants would be taken from other consultants. we're negotiating a range of safeguards. That's very important to us. To limit, for example, the number of your weekends that could be interrupted by either emergency or elective care. But all of the detail of that is still to be negotiated. I've already mentioned Clinical Excellence Awards. We know that the Clinical Excellence Awards scheme is not universally popular, but it is a significant amount of money in the overall consultant pay package. This may surprise you, but Clinical Excellence Awards are not currently contractual. And so you may remember that over the last few years, successive Secretaries of State have reduced the amount of money available for Clinical Excellence Awards, first at a national level and then at a local level. And we're also aware that some trusts have actually not held award rounds at all. A potential benefit of a new contract, and a promise being held out to us, is that although the Clinical Excellence Awards scheme would be abolished, there would be a new performance pay scheme, and that would be contractual, and the funds for it would be ring-fenced. This would be quite a different scheme. Employers want a system of local awards which would not be permanent, unlike the current Clinical Excellence Awards, and not pensionable, although they may actually have tax benefits. I've already mentioned that those of you who already hold local Clinical Excellence Awards, the government's intention is to remove those. We do have significant concerns about several of the things the government wants to change, and I've already mentioned several of those. The removal of that clause, Schedule 3, Paragraph 6, the right to decline non-emergency work in antisocial hours. The lower starting base salary, potential financial loss by more experienced consultants, including the loss of existing Clinical Excellence Awards. But employers are keen to point out that there are some potential benefits. I've mentioned that the pay scale may be more suited to a career average pension scheme. They will say that there will be faster access to a higher salary, that is, getting to around £95,000 in about 5 years. And they're also keen to point out that the CEA money would be contractual now, and there have been some reassurances about guaranteed supporting professional activity time, SPA time. But we can't say for sure or anywhere close to that what the final deal will look like, and certainly not how it would work for individual consultants. But as soon as we have that information, we will share it with you. So, what is happening? Well, we, the BMA Consultants Committee, voted to re-enter negotiations in September of this year. I think the honest way to say that is that it was the least bad option facing us. We wanted to try to improve what was being threatened for imposition on consultants, particularly on new starters. So we are currently in negotiations, and we are negotiating in good faith. In these negotiations, we want to try and get the fairest deal for consultants in these, and I hope I've made it clear, difficult times. Any deal that comes out of this will be put out to a ballot of consultants and more senior trainees in the early part of next year, and prior to that we will organise a conference of LNC chairs and also roadshows around the country to explain in detail what is the best contract that we've been able to achieve through these negotiations. Please remember that the government have said if we refuse to take up this new contract that they will impose. Their new contract would be the only contract available to new starters and anybody moving between consultant posts. I've mentioned several times about removing Clinical Excellence Awards from existing holders, and the threat is that people remaining on the old contract, the real value of that old contract would decline with time as there were no more pay increases. So what am I asking you to do at the moment, given that I can't give you a huge amount of detail yet? Well, I'm asking you to get involved, and please don't just blame the BMA. Remember, you are the BMA. You, the members, you're the BMA, you're the protectors of the medical profession and of patients. Please let your colleagues know that big things are happening. Encourage them to watch this video, read the materials that we're sending out, and come to meetings. We are very keen, as officers of your consultants committee, to come to your local medical staff committee meetings and explain what we can about what faces all of us. So please, if you've got a meeting, invite us. And if you don't yet have a meeting, organise one and invite us, and we'll do our best to get there to speak to you directly. There's information available for you on the internet, on BMA communities. You can email us, and several of my deputy chairs are now on Twitter so that you can get further information there. Of course, you'd expect me to say this. Do join the BMA, otherwise you won't be able to vote in the ballot. Thank you very much for listening to me. I know that much of this may come as quite a shock to you. Big things are happening, so please do get involved and do pay attention to further information as it comes out. Thank you very much.